Greetings and salutations, ladies and menfolk. Welcome to another episode of Word Ninjas Live. That is really hard to change up on the fly. Welcome to episode 89. I am your very confused host, Charles, because I've been doing that Game Break intro way too much this week. Because recordings. Joining me tonight is Will.
Hello.
And Calvin.
Greetings, everyone.
Justin was going to join us, but he's too embarrassed by his lack of productivity this past week, so he's hiding at home. So hopefully he'll be able to join us next week, but only if he's productive.
I guess we can allow it this time.
Everybody gets 1 week, except for me. But yes, even one man short, we're going to have a show. And speaking of shows, let's start this one off with a talkie point, because we have one.
Hooray!
The talkie point for this week is, why do people dislike spoilers but enjoy foreshadowing? And my main thought process of it was, is it because spoilers happen before you're really invested in the story? And like once you do start a story, you become invested and then are kind of okay with glimpses of what could happen going forward? Or are we just contrary beings in general?
Kind of seems to me that, like, we as a people seem to like certain types of instant gratification. Like, like not all types of... Oh, Lord, freaking pollen, sorry. Excuse me. Like, we like certain forms of instant gratification, but in only certain instances. Right. So, like in the literary, like in the world of books and TV shows, movies, media, things like that, I kind of feel like we want to know what's gonna. We want to know. We want to know. Wait, not what's gonna happen, but kind of get a tiny glimpse of what is to come, and you're looking outside confusedly.
Sorry to throw you off, but do you hear hammering from my mic by any chance? Or is that not getting picked up?
Not that I can hear.
Then I'll leave my window open, because it's hot in here.
But yeah, like we don't want to know what comes at the end or what's coming up next, but we like to get this tiny little hint to kind of basically to keep our interest going and have something to chat with other people about who have similar vested interests in whatever particular book, TV show, series, whatever maybe that may be applicable to.
So something like a movie trailer is an acceptable level of spoilers for some.
For some, yeah. Because you don't want to give away all the good stuff in a trailer, you know?
Some movie trailers succeed better than others.
I think I'm the only person I know that's only seen the very first Avengers trailer for the movie coming out Friday. And I've avoided all other trailers, and I've done my best to avoid all other spoilers, because I want to go into it as clean as possible.
I've done better than you. I've avoided all the trailers.
Nice. It's hard.
It is kind of hard, but what kind of helps is not paying attention to social media.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Like, I'm not on Facebook much these days. I'm probably on like a couple of times a week, just to see if I missed anything, what happens to be going on in the world according to all my friends, and and sometimes Tumblr. But Tumblr is hard to keep up with because I follow too many people. But that's just one man's opinion.
Just get bread and lettuce.
I
Sorry.
don't even-
I was distracted vacation, I'm sorry.
Ed is distracting me with talk of food.
Yeah,
food
don't-
is pretty distracting.
Yeah,
He's
don't
giving
forget the
me
bread.
spoilers for dinner later instead of foreshadowing.
Hey, Ed!
Well, I gotta ask what you want. I could surprise you.
I may have taken too much of a literary definition of foreshadowing, but for my own one man's opinion, because our show is all about 3 one-man opinions, or 4 depending on how many people on the air.
4.5 if we get Ed in on it.
Yeah. And I wrote it down because I want to be able to remember the words I thought earlier. But foreshadowing, I see it more as a device, a literary device, so you can use it in anything that's supposed to hint at what's to come, but not blatantly tell you this is how the story ends. It just, if you're paying attention, you'll get clues as to how the story might end without revealing everything. And I love foreshadowing in that sense because it actually heightens the suspense of the story, but doesn't tell you how it ends. Whereas spoilers ruin the suspense by just going, this is what happens. And then when you're actually watching or reading or whatever and you know what's going to happen, the suspense is lost because the buildup of the suspense is ruined because you already know what's going to happen. Whereas the foreshadowing should help enhance that suspense without revealing what's going to happen. It leaves you speculating at what you think is going to happen. And then when it does happen, you go, I was right. Or when it doesn't happen, you go, hey, twist. But either way, your suspense is still there. Whereas spoilers is just, this is how it's going to end. The end.
It kind of like spoilers kind of ruin the return on investment in time that you put into whatever you're reading or watching, like especially a book or a TV show that has a progressive plot.
Yes.
So it kind of makes you feel like, well, there's a lot of different feelings associated with having a plot ruined for you. Rage, sadness, but basically, like a lot of it is like disappointment, especially going back to investing the time that you spent in that particular story.
I can actually think. I've been watching on YouTube someone play The Evil Within, and I'll avoid spoilers, but early on in the game there is a very subtle line that someone says to the main character that the YouTuber I was watching picked up on, and it's perfect foreshadowing because if it's something that anyone would say given the situation, but if you read between the lines, it kind of reveals part of the greater plot. So if you're paying attention, you pick up on it, and if you're not, you don't. But it doesn't come right out and say, this is what's happening. It's just a hint that this might be what's happening, and then you're left with that suspense. And then when it does happen, you go, I was right! I knew it!
The sweet satisfaction of having a correct hunch.
Yes.
I decided to cheat and actually look up the official definitions for the two words.
And that works too.
For the more academic people, foreshadowing is to show or indicate beforehand or prefigure. So yeah, just to imply, not to actually prove. And then spoiler A remark which reveals important plot elements from books or movies, thus denying the reader the proper suspense when reading the book or watching the movie.
I was more on par to the actual definition than I thought I would be, and I'm a little frightened by that.
You foreshadowed.
Apparently. Even up to the use of the word suspense. I swear I didn't look those up in advance. I just remember my 7th grade honors English.
I don't think I've been spoiled by books unless someone else tells me something about it. They're not really as spoiled in media as, say, movies or television, thankfully. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble. It's rather a good thing, really. Because I have way too many books that I could be spoiled on. Like 200.
The only ones I could spoil for you are the Drist series.
And by the time I get to those, I'll have forgotten whatever you said anyway, so...
Stuff happens.
Damn it.
There's swords and magic and sometimes dragons.
And no one ever stays dead.
So
No.
far, no.
No. Continue.
Yeah, no one ever stays dead. So far, as far as I've seen. Deus Ex Machina!
Or in most cases, Deus Ex fuck you.
I thought that's what Machina translated to. Is that not the Latin for fuck you?
I don't know, I never took Latin. Wouldn't surprise me.
Now I want to figure out what the Latin term for fuck you is.
Chances are there's like a half dozen variations depending on how you use it and who you're referencing and if there's anything else in the sentence.
I took enough Latin to know that there'll be enough variations for present tense, past tense, future tense, and they'd all have a male equivalent and a female equivalent.
What
So
about
at least
past
like
imperfect?
6.
All that comes to mind is the scene from, what is that, Life of Brian from Monty Python when they're doing the Latin graffiti and he does it incorrectly and the guard has to correct him.
I took one class of that in 6th grade, and I was like, I should not have taken this.
Just for fun, what's a story or movie or series or anything where you actually got spoiled on and it made you upset? Because it's happened to everyone at some point. I ask as I need to think about it too.
Ed spoiled Full Metal Alchemist for me,
That's not too surprising.
and I did get pretty upset about that one.
I gotta think about this one too.
I know it's happened for books and movies, but for movies it's mainly because I don't go out. I don't see movies in theaters, so the chances of me actually seeing it are minimal. Still makes me upset though.
Oh, there was a part of Assassin's Creed 3 that was spoiled for me that I don't want to say I got upset, but I got mildly like, I didn't know that, don't tell me that. And then the person apologized, but I was like, whatever. Someday I'll finish that game.
Same here.
And
I know-
somehow, all these years I've managed to avoid having the ending of Mass Effect 3 spoiled for me.
Yeah, I still don't know what happens. I have the game. I think I've
I've
only
managed
played
to
an hour.
avoid it. It did mean cutting off a Markiplier video at the end. Because he started talking about it and I went, nope, close tab.
Oh yeah, because it's for the Wii U. That's why I haven't played it much.
They released Mass Effect on the Wii U?
Mass Effect 3.
Huh.
It actually works pretty nicely with the Wii U controller, but my TV is so small I can't see anything.
Hmm.
So I can't see the enemies in any useful manner. And you can probably maybe see it in my screen. I don't even have that up, so I can't tell, but it's like no, you can see the corner of it. It's like a 14-inch TV screen.
Not
So
big enough.
it's the smallest one you can get
Yeah.
because I don't have much space.
Yeah, I played a little bit of it. I got through the intro and I think one mission, and I got one of the characters that you can get, but then I stopped playing just because I was like, I don't want to play it. Partly
I bet
because I heard the ending was not good and that you need a certain DLC, I think the Citadel DLC, to kind of redeem it. And I
yeah,
don't remember if I grabbed that DLC or not, and I'm like, I don't want to play it until I have that DLC.
yeah. The all I know is the ending was very anticlimactic or underappreciated, so they actually came out with the DLC to kind of make it less frustrating for all the fans.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Still don't know what either ending is.
Nope.
If I ever get a capture card, maybe I'll do that. Because that's really the only way I'm going to get through most of those games at this point for Game Break.
I have a large list of games that I'd probably get through faster if I'm recording it on a schedule, yeah, I'll play it.
And who was it? Winter asks, can foreshadowing be foreshadowed? Probably, but you'd have to be clever about it. And it would probably depend on the style of the story.
Hmm. I'd imagine it could be done, but you'd have to do it very, very carefully.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That's one of those conceptual challenges that there's no way I would be able to figure that out, but I kind of want to try anyway. Hmm. Well, while we all get distracted thinking about the logistics of that,
Hmm.
Now we all want to foreshadowing.
of course, by that stretch of logic, can you spoiler a spoiler?
Um,
That might be harder.
not even sure. It's like a spoiler.
I mean, semantically, yes, you could take a generally understood spoiler from a story and spoiler it for someone. So in that aspect, yes.
I wonder if you could spoiler a spoiler by accident, like like saying from like whatever series someone like you've read a series or watched a series and someone else is watching it and they happen to mention that they like a character that you know dies
Hmm.
and you don't come out and say oh they die but they say I like that character and then you kind of make a pained face like oh that's like
Hmm.
spoilering the spoiler because you didn't come out and give the spoiler, but at the same time you kind of did.
So basically, what you two keep doing for Wolf's Rain and the ending.
Uh,
Neither of you have come out directly and just said what happens, but it's enough that I can figure it out.
uh, maybe.
not quite. Not quite.
Maybe not the emotional impact it will have, but at least kind of what the end game is going to be.
Possibly.
Possibly.
Still need to get through that, along with everything else. And of course, to all our viewers and listeners out there, if you want to join in on this topic, by all means, post in the comments accordingly. Have you been spoiled on something before? How did that go over? How do you handle foreshadowing versus spoilering, etc.? Continue the conversations. But in the meantime, onwards to the highlights reel. Which means switching from that to that. No, not like that. Like the other way. The other way that works. Like that. Alright. Highlights. We have a handful of highlights for you this week. And kicking things off is sort of an infographic style, but it's a color analysis on the house and characters of Game of Thrones. And I only tossed this one in because it doesn't really spoiler anything. I guess theoretically it could foreshadow, because I've read enough. I've read like a book and a third, so I know enough of the various houses to understand that the color analysis is accurate. So it foreshadows just how the characters are going to act, but it doesn't spoiler what they're going to do, so you're safe. I actually didn't do that on purpose. This is convenient. But it goes down all the houses, starting with House Targaryen, and like, what does red and black mean? And it means all those things, and I don't know enough about all of the story so far amidst the books to really talk much about it beyond just scroll and show like House Stark is just gray, which is kind of sad. But I can kind of see how they portray the attention to detail as well as pure values to a fault. Not a spoiler, just foreshadowing. Trying not to spoiler. House Baratheon is just yellow, but that's still relevant. House Tyrell, green and yellow. House Lannister, gold and red. House Greyjoy, black and gold. And I don't remember what their actual emblem was, but to me that looks like an upside down kraken. But I'm pretty sure that's actually meant to be a very weird looking stag.
That's
It
a
does
stag?
look like an upside down squid.
I really
Yeah.
don't remember what their emblem is, but that looks like an upside down squid or kraken or something aquatic. But, well, I mean, they do have a crest with a dragon on it, so I guess you could have a crest with a kraken on it, but still, chances are it's a stag of some weird form. And then House Tully is just blue and red with a salmon. I don't remember what fish it was specifically. And it doesn't help. It doesn't say anything here that's useful to tell me what it is, but hey, it's a fish. I just thought it was really interesting that they did a color analysis on their crests, because it's an interesting level of looking into just the intricacies of the story. And if you're into that stuff, it's a pretty interesting read. And as I said, it doesn't spoiler anything about the story, so you're safe. And next up is an article or a piece by R.L. Stine explaining why it's gotten harder to scare teenagers. And unfortunately, Justin isn't here to provide his commentary on this one. He'll just have to listen and provide comments in the YouTube. But for those not familiar, R.L. Stine did like the Goosebumps series, the Fear Street series. I'd like to say that he was at least some part of the television Goosebumps series, but I don't know fully.
He appeared on it, so yeah, he was involved with it.
Okay.
He'd have like little blurbs at the end of episodes.
It's been forever since I've watched one of those episodes, but they were fun.
I think he was as involved as Jackie Chan was in Jackie Chan Adventures.
Okay. But his commentary kind of boiled down to it's harder to scare teenagers with, I'm going to extrapolate his style of horror, mainly because technology has advanced so much since the 80s and the 90s. People are a lot more connected to just everything now, which makes it a lot easier to handle crises like someone's calling you and you don't know who it is. Well, now we have caller ID. And yeah, as we were talking about it off air beforehand, there's a lot of block numbers, and sometimes it just shows up as the state, not an actual name, not even a company sometimes. So you can still add that effect into it, but there's a lot scarier things out there, both in the real world and in other horror, that stuff like that just doesn't really cut it anymore. We've become desensitized to that level of horror. Now, if your phone ran out of battery and cell phone service, that might change things.
Yeah, that would be the biggest fear for a teenager. Not having easy access to their cell phone
Or computer.
or computer.
So
Any sort of
basically, knock out the power.
No matter the time period, losing power is always a scary situation.
Hmm.
And can I just say that I have been very disappointed with how Hollywood, at least, has been trying to use the internet and social media as a source of fear. I can think of several movies, including one that just came out, that are just like, that's not how it works. No. Stop.
Okay, so apparently we're not all weird. Apparently that crest is an actual kraken.
Oh,
Okay.
Well done.
yay. It looked like it had the extra squiddly arms.
Hmm. Wonder why it was upside down.
Because it's swimming down?
Fair enough. Going back to R.L. Stein's commentary, another line that is harder to keep up with is he spent a lot of time going to schools and talking to teenagers and kids for Goosebumps just to see what they say, how they talk, what they wear. So kind of keeping up on the trends of actual teenagers.
Mm.
That stuff changes way too fast. You can't keep up with that anymore. Not for something as comparatively static as books are now. Because once you write it down, in 5 years' time, that's going to be outdated and hard to reference. So I can kind of feel them on that. Of course, maybe that's why there seems to be an influx of more psychological horror going on. Because if you can't really mess with people's technology as easily, mess with their heads. That's always terrifying. And that kind of is more timeless, as it were. Since technology is always changing, but a person's brain, not so much. And next up is one that Will's going to cover off.
Yay. So this article is about collective nouns in English. That is to say, a group of noun animals, like I can't even think of a normal one, like a pack of dogs, or in the case that's right here, a murder of crows. This website has a huge, well, a decent-sized list of more interesting collections of words, as well as a little bit of history as to why we even use them. which I found interesting, that it actually goes back to hunting in the 14th and 15th centuries in France and England, because people did not want to sound like commoners.
That
Heaven
kind of
forbid you
explains the
sound like...
theme.
What was that?
That kind of explains the theme of why they're all kind of packaged the way they are.
Well, like
Royalty are weird.
yeah, well, like it says there, it sounds braver if you hunt a pride of lions as opposed to a confusion of guinea fowl or a murmuration of starlings.
I
Or
don't know. I think it would be fun to kind of go after a confusion of guinea fowl. Well, am I being the one confused, or are they? Because that might make
I
a difference.
think everybody's confused.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's some of them stuck around, like a murder of crows and a litter of puppies and a den of thieves, a flight of stairs. They've got other ones like a parliament of owls, an illusion of magicians.
I like that.
Probably CJ's favorite one, a smack of jellyfish.
Only because it animated it. They drew it.
I like a mess of iguanas. That's interesting. And an unkindness of ravens. A huddle of penguins. An ambush of tigers. A mob of kangaroos. A troop of mushrooms. Which I guess makes sense because they grow in little units together.
Mm.
A bloat of hippopotami.
Yes. And I like how a collection of dragons is a flight of dragons.
As it should be.
There's also things like a stack of librarians and an audit of bookkeepers.
I'm not so sure about an eloquence of lawyers.
And the somewhat disturbingly accurate, a following of stalkers. But if you've ever been curious about a little bit of history of such things, this website covers it.
I do kind of like the trio of a flight of yesterdays, a twinkling of todays, nice alliteration, and a promise of tomorrows. I did not know those.
Me either.
Apparently, C.S. Lewis created a Parliament of Owls in Narnia in the 50s. And now it's just what it is.
Huh.
Awesome.
Well, that kind of makes sense. A decent chunk of the English language was made up by William Shakespeare in his plays.
True.
He just made up words, and now they're the official words for things. So if someone tells you something is not a word, just tell them it's not a word yet.
Mm. I find it accurate that there's also a babble of linguists. I can live with that.
But definitely an interesting site to peruse, just for learning a few new words and broadening your vocabulary. Sure.
Give it a year or two, it'll be a word.
If you can say it, it's a word. If you can say it and define it, it's a word.
I would have an addendum to that, but only because I've been playing certain games where there are names I cannot pronounce.
Fair enough.
I mean, at least it's not Welsh, but Russian is harder than I expected.
Russian has a few other interesting letters that you have to take into account.
Like most of them?
Yeah, like most of them. I can also say in the picture for a smack of jellyfish, I really like that one jellyfish in the back that's like, oh, no!
Why is the one on the right just smiling?
Maybe he's a sadist.
That one's like, yeah, he had that coming.
And the one in the back, don't give a fuck.
Alright, next article up is another infographic, because why not? This one is 33 ways to visualize ideas by using a visual.
It's an infographic of infographics.
Basically. I just thought it was an interesting way of compiling all the various methods that people use to organize their ideas. I use
Bring me
a,
back to math classes in college.
I use a fair portion of these at work.
There is a lot of these I'm not familiar with.
I remember using decision trees in computer programming and stuff.
Yep.
I like how periodic table is on there.
A speedometer chart. And that's a new one on me.
I thought they just used those to compare download speeds.
Or any sort of speeds.
Okay, put in that context, that makes sense.
I was never a fan of the word clouds. Always just looked like a mess of words to me.
Hmm.
Which one is that? Oh yeah.
I guess like bigger words are more important or whatever. They're usually used with like searches, so you can see which
Yeah.
words are more searched.
The tag cloud system.
Yeah. I'd prefer just a list where, top to bottom, most to least, as opposed to just a big mess of words of different sizes.
Because then I get curious about the ones that are really, really tiny font. Like, why do you only have 1 or 2 hits on that one?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I try to click on them, but they're too small.
Just give me a list.
Mm.
Depleting chart looks interesting. I never heard of that one.
Neither have I.
I like the idea of an exploded donut.
Those are fun depending on the context.
I was thinking an actual donut with explosives in it.
Stop giving my assassin baker ideas.
I can't help it. I want exploding donuts.
If we ever get a chance to sit down and talk about that plot, you may get it.
It does seem like a really dubious tool for an assassin baker. Just leave them out and wait, and eventually someone's going to come by to eat them, and then boom, you blow up their face.
It sounds kind of like a plot point that was used in an episode of Perfect Strangers. Yeah, wow, how do I remember that? There was an episode of Perfect Strangers where Balky showed Larry how to make a pastry called a baby babka from his homeland, and you have to make it a specific way, which interestingly enough included a song you have to sing while you're making it.
Nope.
And if you do not adhere verbatim to how it's supposed to be properly made, they explode.
Oh dear.
Of course. That sounds like something you'd have to deal with Rolf from Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
Oh god.
You do it wrong and get slapped in the face with a raw fish.
Man, I can't figure out how I remembered that episode. It's been at least 20 years since I've last seen it.
You have a better memory than most.
I have a good memory of like really, really trivial, mundane things.
Same.
But ask me about what I ate for breakfast. I don't know. I ate something. Wait, did I eat breakfast today? Yeah, I did.
I've forgotten things I learned in college, but I remember things from video games I played as a child.
Priorities.
Apparently.
Alright, next up. Come on. As we seem to do every week, more books. Because you can never have enough books, no matter what Justin says. Now, Humble Bundle has come out with their next series, and it's focusing on kids' comic books, which is actually kind of a nice change. They've kind of been going off on odd tangents lately for their book series, which is nice, so you get a bit of variety.
Anything that includes Axe Cop, I fully support.
Wait, Axe Cop is? Oh,
Yep.
yes, nice.
The Humble Bundle has Axe Cop Volume 1 by Malachi and Ethan Nicole.
Yes.
It also gives you How Tunes Ignition Volume 1 by Fred Van Lent, Tom Fowler, and Jordi Belair. I love this series, the Build Your Own website. Well, that's not the series, but a comic guide. They do it for all sorts of stuff. This one's on HTML, CSS, and WordPress.
Nice.
Kind of surprised that they actually went with a specific CMS, but it is the best.
Mm-hmm.
And that one's by Nate Cooper and Kim G, or Kim Gee. I'm not sure how you pronounce the last name. Next up is Spaghetti is Not a Finger Food and Other Life Lessons by Jody Carmichael and Ackerley Sarah. You also get Betty and Veronica's Princess Storybook by Dan Parent. And Ugly Doll, Eat Dat by Travis Nichols and Ian McGinty. There's Super Dinosaur Volume 1, which is issues 1 through 6 by Robert Kirkman and Jason Howard. And The Incredible Plate Tectonics comic, The Adventures of Geo by Kanani K.M. Lee and Adam Walenta. That one looks really interesting. When I was reading the description, that looks like it's a fun read. And all of those are just pay what you want. If you want to pay $1, you can pay $1 and you get all of those books. But if you pay the average price, which is always changing depending on what people toss down as their number, it's currently at $6.69, but when you listen to this, it may be different. But if you pay the average, you unlock another line. That line is Maddie Kettle, Book 1, The Adventures of the Thimble Witch by Eric Orchard, which looks like a really cute little art style and I'm sure is a fun read. You also got Grown Ups, The World and Me by Judith Lazar. Monster on a Hill, Book 1 by Rob Harrell. That one also looks like it's a fun read. I kind of want that one. You have Usagi Yojimbo, Yokai by Stan Sakai. You have The Stink Files, Dossier 001, The Postman Always Brings Mice by Jenny Holm and Jonathan Hamill. Skylanders Volume 2, Champions by a whole mess of people. And The Only Living Boy Number 1 by David Gallagher and Steve Ellis, which also looks like it has a fun storyline. And this line, where if you pay the average price, you get all of these, they keep adding to before it runs out, so there's probably going to be a few more before all is said and done. And if you happen to go all out and pay $15 or more, you get 3 more books, as if that wasn't enough. You also get The Misadventures of Salem Hyde, Book 1, Spelling Trouble by Frank Camuso. The Lunch Witch by Deb Luke, which looks fun. And Lumberjanes, Volume 1 by Noel Stevenson, Grace Ellis, Book Allen, and Shannon Waters. And I just like the title of that one. I haven't actually looked at the details for it, but that's a whole slew of books, from $1 to $15, depending on how many you want and which ones interest you. And I'm pretty sure that, as per usual, you can get it in whatever digital format you prefer, if it's on your Kindle or Nook or iPad or other such form. They're pretty good about that. And that's over at Humble Bundle for basically the next 2 weeks. And Story Bundle has come out with their next series. This one on the mean streets, or basically crime books. Not as many as the Humble Bundle, which is good because I don't want to be talking for the next 30 minutes. But over at Story Bundle, they have Ed Gorman's Serpent's Kiss and Maynard Sims' Falling Apart at the Edges, or David Wilson's Sins of the Flash. which looked interesting. I kind of want it. You have Bill Pronzini's Carmody's Run, Steven Seville's Laughing Boy Shadow, which I really want and is very tempting. You have Tony Black's Truth Lies Bleeding. And if you pay, didn't write it down. I'm going to guess $12. No, $14. 15. If you pay $15 or more, you get the second line. It changes for each bundle, so. But if you pay $14 or less, so like $1 to $14, you get the 6 books. If you pay 15 or more, you get the extra 5. The extra 5 are Clive Barker's Cabal, which Clive Barker is just downright freaky, but in a really good way. So I kind of want it because all of his stories are a terrifying read, but a fun read. You have Sean Bloch's The Innocent, a Ryan Locke novel. You have Stephen Gallagher's Downriver. You have Tom Piccirilli's Nightjack, which also looks really good, and I really, really want it, but I can't buy more books. And rounding it out is David Morrell's Brotherhood of the Rose. And as I said, those are over on Story Bundle for also basically 2 weeks. And those are your highlights for the week. All the links are in the show notes accordingly.
I just remembered something that might be worth throwing out because it's interesting and a little sad. It's not new news, but it's relatively new news. Some people who pay attention to the video game industry may know that Hideo Kojima left Konami.
That did
Really?
not. Yeah,
Yes.
that did not end well.
And as
Really?
such, Silent Hills has been canceled.
Yeah.
Oh.
People
wow.
are not happy about that, and I can't blame them.
If you have a PS4, I think you have a very limited amount of time to at least grab PT before they pull it.
Yeah, I think some people were still trying to grab it. I don't
Yeah.
know when that disappears, though.
They said it on, if you go back to Monday's Achievement Hunters weekly update, they mention it in there. I think it was the 4th. I think you basically have to like the end of the week or the beginning of next week. But I think it's the end of this week. The 4th is Saturday, so I think you have until the 4th to grab PT if you have a PS4. But yeah, he left Konami and Silent Hills has been canceled. Which is a shame because there were a lot of speculation about Silent Hills.
I would not play it, at least personally, because I just couldn't. But I would love to have it be a thing and be able to watch other people play it.
Same.
Because even though I personally can't do that series, I love that series. It's a fantastic verse, and Kojima would be fantastic at it, but it is what it is.
Mm.
Let's see here. Now for the reason that Justin isn't here, the Productivity and Inspiration Station. For me, Word Ninjas 2.0 slowly progresses. That's just frustrating. I need to get on that. I finished Glass of Thrones by Sarah Moss, and I want to know what happens next. God dang it. It wasn't a cliffhanger. There was resolution, but there's currently two more novels in the storyline with more coming. I have the other 2 on my Kindle, so I can really start whenever. It's just I haven't yet. But I got into another series, and I really kind of want actual physical copies of them for my shelf. Because that's a series I have a feeling that I want on my shelf of just books that I keep forever. So if I want to reread them, I can. And in non-productive news, pollen. It just keeps getting worse.
Oh.
Agreed. At least I've migrated from the it gives me migraines weeks. Now it's just the sneezing weeks. And then my least favorite is after all this, I'll get the runny nose for a week or so. And then it'll be done. It better be done. Or else I will cry.
That might help with getting the pollen out of your eyes.
No, actually, with the runny nose, it actually gives me itchy eyes, so I don't know.
Yeah. Dang.
Spring is not fun for me.
I've been seemingly immune to like the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 springs, but this one hit me over the head like a smack of jellyfish.
I guess it's making up for lost seasons.
I guess so.
Hey, Will, how have you fared since last week? You're muted.
About that. Since last week, I wrote up and typed up a roughly 3,000 word short adult story because I can. Because it was in my head and it needed to be a thing and written, as all things and ideas should be. Hopefully, I'll probably edit that maybe tonight and tomorrow, and actually be able to put it up on my Patreon.
Nice.
Nice.
Nice indeed. Game recording and audio editing are still on track and doing their thing, which is good. Haven't fallen behind on that. But I do seriously need to figure out the next scene of Roommate. It's bugging me because I know what I want to happen as the resolution, but I need to have the words there. And also, the next scene after that, I completely know what I want to do. But I need this scene too, and it's driving me nuts. And pollen is making me sneeze occasionally, once a day maybe. Not that bad. It's not bothering me really all that much at all.
We're covering the quota for you.
Yeah.
I'll have it at the end of summer. Come like July, I will be dying.
Just in time for Kineticon.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm more allergic to like pine trees. So they bother me more when the pine cones open up. And there also aren't a lot of pine trees around here, so it's not as bad. When I lived on Long Island, it was horrible. Because I lived in a place called The Pines. Guess why they called them that?
Because of the oak trees?
Of course! And the maple trees. There were pine trees. Our backyard was adjacent to a small pine tree forest.
Yeesh.
So, yeah. That time of year on Long Island, I was dying. I think we have one pine tree in our house up here, and the rest of it is all other kinds of trees, so it's not as bad.
That reminds all this talk of spring reminds me of an old webcomic called Punks and Nerds. They had a one strip that was all about spring and how much it sucks when you have allergies. I am going to link that to you guys because it is worth reading and empathizing with.
In the meantime, apparently we have comments. My phone has not really been giving me readable comments. That's a noisy airplane. Apparently the whole Kraken thing, their slogan is "We do not sow," which kind of makes sense if you're in the water. everyone is confused when guinea fowl are involved, which, fair enough. And a suggestion of a fruit basket of homosexuals.
I would think a rainbow would be more accurate or more fitting.
And apparently I merged titles. I meant Throne of Glass, not Glass of Thrones. Glass of Thrones does not exist. Throne of Glass does. Thank you for the correction.
Needs to write a book called Glass of Thrones.
I wonder how that would even work logistically. Now I'm going to have to figure that out. But in the meantime, continue with the productivityness, or lack thereof.
I guess it's my turn. So, yeah, I bought a new tablet. I has a tablet. Got me a Nexus 7, the 2013 version, because high resolution screen.
Shiny.
And it's been working out quite nicely. A little bit too nicely, if you ask me. Because Kindle app and story bundles and humble bundles.
Have you just been buying them off and on, so you were just banking them until now?
Basically.
Don't tell Justin.
So I've pretty much hit my book quota for a while.
Until Book Expo?
Until oh shit.
You're only there for a day.
A
And
day's
we
all
are
I need. Well, last year working involved me waiting in line to pick up books,
Fair
and
enough.
you know how that turned out. And people can watch how that turned out in our recommended readings section when we did a book review. We did our book review, our book haul. But even with the dozens of books I have on my Kindle now, it has like this whole thing has helped me breeze through 2 books already, and I've only had this since Friday.
What books?
There's one book I'd been like really wanting to read. It was a series of short stories called Septiles and Other Places by Donna Carrick. That was actually a book I had mentioned in like a very early Word Ninjas podcast. Like I tried to read it on my Behemoth tablet, but the screen was just god awful, and reading on that thing was not good. And I've also gone through the Little Black Book of Design by Adam Judge.
How was that one?
It was not at all what I expected. I expected it to be like an actual book of like
Design.
design theories, tips and tricks, but it's just basically like very straightforward sentences and paragraphs, like one sentence per page, just like very straightforward. This is how you should go about this. Do this, do that, things of that nature. It's actually not bad. And it has a very nice bit of advice as well. Advice, advice, thoughts, sayings. Like here's one that I came across that I bookmarked. The gap between what you know and what you think you know is a dangerous place. And here's my favorite one. Here's my favorite page. The alternate should not be faster, cleaner, more efficient than the primary. If it is, then the alternate should be the primary.
That's pretty logical.
Yeah. So it's a very short read, but I did enjoy it.
Cool.
Oh, just looking through my Kindle app. All the all the book covers finally downloaded for all the books I downloaded. So I think the next one I'm reading is Theodore Roosevelt, Vampire Slayer.
What? I know there was an Abraham.
Yeah, is it the sequel to the Abraham Lincoln one?
I'm not sure if it's by the same author. Where the hell are you? There you go. Theodore Roosevelt, Vampire Slayer by James Fortescue.
Hmm.
Although written as fiction, this 20,000-word novella comprising part one of my narrative is based entirely on secret diaries and other accounts penned by Theodore Roosevelt over the course of his lifetime, these having been bequeathed to his cousin, friend, and confidant, Gravel Road Fortescue, which is one of the author's ancestors. So. In some critical works touching on the literature of vampirism, Theodore Roosevelt's uncle, Robert Roosevelt, is cited as the real-life model for Bram Stoker's Abraham Van Helsing. In fact, it is Theodore Roosevelt, with whom Stoker was friendly, who stands as the far more likely candidate for this designation.
I'm intrigued.
That was part of the preface of this book, so I'm very interested to see how this one plays out. After this book is done, I want to read the second in the short story series that Septiles and Other Places came from. The series is called the Toboggan Mystery Anthology. The second book is called Knowing Penelope. So I look forward to that one. So I got plenty to read and finally something good to read it on. So I'm very happy about that.
Yay.
So I can finally sort through all these blasted books and give justification to why I purchased all of them in the first place. Good grief.
I'm currently migrating to my physical books because there was a day or two when the Kindle Fire went on sale for like $99.
Oh.
But I chose for the free shipping, which is like 3 weeks.
Oh, jeez.
Because, why add? I'm not in a rush. But once that comes, and I actually have basically a Kindle that has a backlight to it, I'll be a lot happier.
All bets are off then.
Because I have one of the retro Kindles where there is no backlight. It is purely a Kindle.
Okay. Wait, so you have the Kindle Fire. That's the tablet, right?
Yes.
Wait, don't you have a Nexus 7 as well?
The Nexus 7 is the older version of yours, and it is incredibly slow, and it crashes a lot when I try to do stuff. Like, whenever there's a link in Skype and I try to open it, it crashes.
Oh. The only time this here has crashed was when after corresponding with Story Bundle from trying to figure out why my books wouldn't why emails from them weren't going through, so I could activate my account. The flood the flood of books came through, and I opened up my Kindle app, downloading all these books. Kindle has closed unexpectedly. Like, it got to the very last book and it crashed.
Oh, so close.
But thankfully, I was able to download all the books the second time around. So I'm very happy right now.
Yay. I almost feel bad asking about the rest of your list.
Let's see, in non-Kindle and ebook related news, I've got a couple new songs in the works for Infinity's Light. And let's see, one's basically going to be a remix of the last song I made, which was an action theme. But what's interesting about that one is that it's going to tie in with the original idea I had for my original action theme. So the original action theme was going to be like a really like heavy driving, heavy like guitar heavy rock theme.
Hmm.
The last action theme is drum and bass in 7/8 time and strings. So basically, I'm going to make a guitar version of that theme in 4/4 time this time, just to avoid throwing people off and throwing myself off and trying to play guitar in 7/8 time.
It can be done.
Yeah, there's plenty of guitar virtuosos that are able to play in odd times. I'm not a guitar virtuoso. I'm good, but I'm not like Steve Vai, Ingving Malmsteen good. No. So besides the songs I'm working on, I'm also going to revisit a previous track because I came across some new sound patches, and the sound patches I've purchased will be much more suited for the theme of that particular song. And so I'm looking forward to playing around with that. Let's see, what else is going on? Yeah. Fuck Skyroads. Fuck that game and fuck everything about it.
Started off so innocently in episode 1.
Ruined.
I was going to try to record the final episode tonight, but I still can't get through Road 2 of Druidia. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make like a small 2-minute video, a small 2-minute crash compilation video of all the times I've crashed in Road 2 and post that for tomorrow along with V to the 6th power.
I mean, I didn't play even remotely as long as you have, but... And I didn't
Only
cut
one not
anything out of
playing.
this recording either,
Am I the only one not playing a rage game?
so far.
So far.
I don't
But
think
there
I
is
have any.
yet.
Hmm.
There is like a 20-minute sequence that I sped up considerably.
Yeah, I watched that video earlier today. I'm surprised you did not go full on Michael Jones on that one.
If I had this recording space capable of being able to do that, I would have. And the level that I went to in its place didn't help.
Mm.
For our viewers, tune in tomorrow for our game break episode to find out what game breaks me.
So, yeah, fuck Sky Roads. And lastly on my list, the air tried to kill me today.
No dying.
And tell that to all the pollen that has infiltrated my bedroom. I don't know how that happened. And what another thing that didn't help was I fell asleep with the window closed and the air was like Arizona dry.
Ooh.
I would have opened the window before I went to bed, but I don't remember going to bed last night. Like, I remember I was on my computer, I was watching a YouTube video, and the next thing I knew, I was in my bed and it was 6:15 in the morning.
Ah, one of those nights.
Yeah. So, that's been my week.
Well then. Let's see here. Since we don't have Justin to expand on this episode, we're actually going to end relatively early. I'm sure he'll be pleased. For those of you interested, we have updated some of the semantics of the events section, mainly finally confirming just who's going to be showing up where and as what. We're still poking a few conventions to officially pin down press logistics. I'm not going to change those until I have the email proof or some sort of confirmation, because that's how conventions work. We need the confirmation.
Right.
But I'm excited for the end of next month because Book Expo and BookCon right next to each other. Never mind that it requires like 5 days straight of traveling into Manhattan. It'll be worth it. And that's in the show notes, of course, and on the website if you want to check it out, find out where we're going to be and when. So if you want to see us in person, you'll know where to go. And with that, we're going to end early. So, as always, if we have entertained you in any way, shape, or form, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can watch, comment, and thumbs up all of our various shenanigans. From all 89 episodes of Word Ninjas Live to a plethora of Game Break series, from Bioshock to Sky Rage to V to the Sixth Power to what am I playing on Fridays? Everlasting Summer and World End Economica. I'm pretty sure that this week is Everlasting Summer this Friday.
Yes.
That was fun, except for all the names, because I can't do Russian. But it's still fun. But yeah, feel free to go check all that out. If you want to talk to us via social media, we're over on Twitter at FCWordNinja, and you get bonus points if you use the hashtag WordNinjas. You can also track us down on Tumblr, fcwordninja.tumblr.com, and our Facebook page is facebook.com/fullcoveragewriters. Converse with us, talk to us, ask us questions or stuff if you want to have put on a future episode of the show. We eventually will run out of questions just between our crew, so if you want to toss in more, by all means. And if you want to help fund all of our crazy endeavors, go check out the Etsy store, etsy.com/shop/fullcoveragewriters. We have all sorts of shiny baubles for you to get your muse inspired, or intimidated if you get one of the Word Ninja plushies, because they'll just stare at you judgingly until you do something. And if you want to track me down personally, you're brave. My personal Tumblr is fancypantswolf.tumblr.com. It's probably the best way to track me down. My Slash and Burn Trilogy Tumblr is effectively on hold until Word Ninjas 2.0 is dealt with. That takes priority. And sometimes you can track me down on the Fairy Tale Podcast as Makarov, Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, on their YouTube channel. Hey, where can people find Will?
You can usually find me on my Tumblr page at darkhom.tumblr.com. That's spelled darkhom.tumblr.com. You can also check out stuff for My Roommate's a Stripper at myroommatesastripper.tumblr.com. And if you want to support me personally, you can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/darkhom.
And rounding us out, where can people find the Sleepy Calvin?
I can be found on Twitter and Instagram at ccwii. I update Instagram more so than Twitter these days, but check them both out. Let's see. Tumblr is instacal.tumblr.com, and if you're interested in checking out some of my music, that's soundcloud.com/sounds by Calvin. Blank there for a second.
All right. That's a show, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hope you had fun. Again, post in the comments, either responding to stuff or if you want to ask questions, by all means, continue the conversations. And until next time, have a good night, everyone.
Adios.
Bye. Foreshadowing should help enhance that suspense without revealing what's going to happen. It leaves you speculating at what you think is going to happen. And then when it does happen, you go, I was right. Or when it doesn't happen, you go, hey, twist. But either way, your suspense is still there. Whereas spoilers is just, this is how it's going to end. The end.
It kind of, like, spoilers kind of ruin the return on investment in time that you put into whatever you're reading or watching, like especially a book or a TV show that has a progressive plot.
Yes.
So it kind of makes you feel like, well, there's a lot of different feelings associated with having a plot ruined for you. Rage, sadness, but basically, like, a lot of it is like disappointment, especially going back to investing the time that you spent in that particular story.
I can actually think. I've been watching on YouTube someone play The Evil Within, and I'll avoid spoilers, but early on in the game, there is a very subtle line that someone says to the main character that the YouTuber I was watching picked up on, and it's perfect foreshadowing because if it's something that anyone would say given the situation, but if you read between the lines, it kind of reveals part of the greater plot. So if you're paying attention, you pick up on it, and if you're not, you don't. But it doesn't come right out and say, this is what's happening. It's just a hint that this might be what's happening, and then you're left with that suspense. And then when it does happen, you go, I was right! I knew it!
The sweet satisfaction of having a correct hunch.
Yes.
I decided to cheat and actually look up the official definitions for the two words.
And that works too.
For the more academic people, foreshadowing.
Media, things like that. I kind of feel like we want to know what's gonna. We want to know. Wait, not what's gonna happen, but kind of get a tiny glimpse of what is to come, and you're looking outside confusedly.
Sorry to throw you off, but do you hear hammering from my mic by any chance? Or is that not getting picked up?
Not that I can hear.
Then I'll leave my window open, because it's hot in here.
But yeah, like, we don't want to know what comes at the end or what's coming up next, but we like to get that this tiny little hint to kind of basically to keep our interest going and have something to chat with other people about who have similar vested interests in whatever particular book, TV show, series, whatever maybe that may be applicable to.
So something like a movie trailer is an acceptable level of spoilers for some.
For some, yeah. Because you don't want to give away all the good stuff in a trailer, you know?
Hmm.
Some movie trailers succeed better than others.
I think I'm the only person I know that's only seen the very first Avengers trailer for the movie coming out Friday. And I have avoided all other trailers, and I've done my best to avoid all other spoilers because I want to go into it as clean as possible.
I've done better than you. I've avoided all the trailers.
Nice. It's
Like
hard.
It is kind of hard, but what kind of helps is not paying attention to social media.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Like I'm not on Facebook much these days. I'm probably on like a couple of times a week, just to see if I missed anything.
Doing is to show or indicate beforehand or prefigure. So yeah, just to imply, not to actually prove. And then spoiler. A remark which reveals important plot elements from books or movies, thus denying the reader the proper suspense when reading the book or watching the movie.
I was more on par to the actual definition than I thought I would be, and I'm a little frightened by that.
You foreshadowed.
Apparently. Even up to the use of the word suspense. I swear I didn't look those up in advance. I just remember my 7th grade honors English.
I don't think I've been spoiled by books unless someone else tells me something about it. They're not really as spoiled in media as, say, movies or television, thankfully. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble. It's rather a good thing, really. Because I have way too many books that I could be spoiled on. Like 200.
The only ones I could spoil for you are the Drist series.
And by the time I get to those, I'll have forgotten whatever you said anyway, so...
Stuff happens.
Damn it.
There's swords and magic and sometimes dragons.
And no one ever stays dead.
So
No.
far, no.
No. Continue.
Yeah, no one ever stays dead. So far, as far as I've seen. Deus Ex Machina!
Or in most cases, Deus Ex fuck you.
I thought that's what Machina translated to. Is that not the Latin for fuck you?
I don't know, I never took Latin. Wouldn't surprise me. Greetings and salutations, ladies and menfolk. Welcome to another episode of Word Ninjas Live. That is really hard to change up on the fly. Welcome to episode 89. I am your very confused host, Charles, because I've been doing that Game Break intro way too much this week. Because recordings. Joining me tonight is Will.
Hello.
And Calvin.
Greetings, everyone.
Justin was going to join us, but he's too embarrassed by his lack of productivity this past week, so he's hiding at home. So hopefully he'll be able to join us next week, but only if he's productive.
I guess we can allow it this time. This time.
Everybody gets 1 week, except for me. But yes, even one man short, we're gonna have a show. And speaking of shows, let's start this one off with a talkie point, because we have one.
Hooray!
The talkie point for this week is, why do people dislike spoilers but enjoy foreshadowing? And my main thought process of it was, is it because spoilers happen before you're really invested in a story? And like once you do start a story, you become invested and then are kind of okay with glimpses of what could happen going forward? Or are we just contrary beings in general?
Kind of seems to me that like we as a people seem to like certain types of instant gratification, like like not all types of. Oh Lord, freaking pollen! Sorry. Excuse me. Um, like we like certain forms of instant gratification, but in only certain instances. Right. So like in the literary, like in the world of books and TV shows, movie, what happens to be going on in the world according to all my friends and sometimes Tumblr. But Tumblr is hard to keep up with because I follow too many people. But that's just one man's opinion.
Just get bread and lettuce.
I
Sorry.
don't even-
I am a side distractification, I'm sorry.
Ed is distracting me with talk of food.
Yeah,
food is pretty distracting.
Yeah,
He's
don't
giving
forget the
me
bread.
spoilers for dinner later instead of foreshadowing.
Hey Ed.
Well, I gotta ask what you want. I could surprise you.
I may have taken too much of a literary definition of foreshadowing, but for my own one man's opinion, because our show is all about 3 one-man opinions, or 4 depending on how many people on the air.
4.5 if we get Ed in on it.
Yeah. And I wrote it down because I want to be able to remember the words I thought earlier. But foreshadowing, I see it more as a device, a literary device, so you can use it in anything that's supposed to hint at what's to come, but not blatantly tell you this is how the story ends. It just, if you're paying attention, you'll get clues as to how the story might end without revealing everything. And I love foreshadowing in that sense because it actually heightens the suspense of the story, but doesn't tell you how it ends. Whereas spoilers ruin the suspense by just going, this is what happens. And then when you're actually watching or reading or whatever and you know what's going to happen, the suspense is lost because the buildup of the suspense is ruined because you already know what's going to happen. Whereas the